I'm the director of the Lane Center here on campus, and I'm also a member of the USF Reading Project Committee that helped put together the reading project for this summer and continues this afternoon. As many of you know, most colleges and universities across the country begin the new year with a reading project, and USF is a participant in that great educational tradition. This year, however, as you know, we broadened our understanding of what a text was, and we focused on a mural by Diego Rivera titled Man, Controller of the Universe. The reading project was designed for a couple different reasons. One, to introduce students to the intellectual life and to the educational mission at USF. Our goal also was to promote critical thinking, cultural engagement, and a common experience for USF students. And last week, during orientation, we had really a number of great discussion groups around the mural and the students' perspective of the mural, and we were really excited about that. So now I'm going to introduce to you USF professor in art and architecture, Sergio De La Torre, who is going to introduce our distinguished speaker. So, Sergio.
Thank you. I'd like to thank, before we start, the Mexican Consulate for inviting our guests today, especially Jonathan Scheid Auerbach, which is the Deputy Consul General. Thank you. I know he's not here today, but Andrea is. It is an honor for me to introduce our guest today. Guadalupe Rivera Marin is an ex-diplomat and was also a member of the Mexican Congress, and she is a cultural promoter. She has worked most of her life in favor of indigenous groups in Mexico, and she's also the founder of La Fundación Diego Rivera, dedicated to preserve her father's memory through art research and through the support of young artists. This is through grants and exhibitions. She's also a published author of books that address the relationship between her father and herself, painter Diego Rivera. These books include Mi Papá Diego and Me, or I'm sorry, Mi Papá Diego y Yo, My Papa Diego and I, and Memories of My Father and His Art, Recuerdos de Mi Padre y Su Arte. She also co-wrote a book on recipes, a cookbook, titled Frida's Feast, that I use quite often. I enjoy that book a lot, thank you. Especially pozole, it's really good, from Jalisco. Today, Guadalupe Rivera Marin is here to talk about the legacy of her father's work. Please join me in welcoming Guadalupe Marina Rivera, I'm sorry.
Hello, everybody. I am so impressed because there are too many beautiful women here and some men. And the book is dedicated to the greatest painter of the world. And my father is there. So yeah, I feel so proud, you know, because together with Leonardo, with Rafael, with Uccello, con Picasso, con Matisse, con everybody, my father is there. Frida is there too. Well, I don't care. and I decided to travel all over, and I am been so happy because here in the United States, I had been invited to many places, to schools and universities and clubs, to talk about my father. And everywhere when I went to talk about my father, the people is so charmed with me that I hope you will be so charmed with me too. I'm sure of that. And the second thing, I promised to give an introduction why I am here, and then I told you why I am here. I am doctor at law, and I was very proud to be a student at the University of Mexico. I was teaching at the University of Mexico many years. I was retired of professor of the University of Mexico as an ambassador of Mexico. And I have 10 years traveling, talking about my father. And now I will relate something about the history, why my father started to paint this mural, because I am interested in your project. I thought it's a very interesting project that you are realizing here. You asked me to come because of the project, and I will tell you something about the origin of the mural. The mural was painted in 1933. But before of that, my father came to the United States in 1929, the last month of 1929. And he comes directly to New York because there was a lady there in New York. The name of the lady was Florence Payne. And she was a person who was really interested in Mexico. His father was, I'm sorry because I confuse he and her and so, but you should understand. You excuse me, please. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's my. I have not the custom, the habit to talk frequently English, so I left to talk for years or months, and then when I start again, well, I am not in the possibility of being perfectly with my language, but excuse me, please. And Florence Payne, she was the daughter of a engineer who was working in the railroad in Mexico, in the creation of the railroad. And she loved Mexico, and when she came to New York with the idea of do something for Mexican art, And why? Because he met, he was a close friend from A.B. Rockefeller. And the lady was the mother of Nelson Rockefeller and the wife of John D. Rockefeller Jr. And A.B. Rockefeller was a woman very interesting on art. So with Mrs. Payne, they decided to create an association, and they created the Mexican Art Association with the purpose of bring to the United States the most important artists that they were working in Mexico City by the time. And they have a political purpose at the same time, not only artistic one, but by the time, the most important artists in Mexico, they belonged to the Communist Party. And they were definitely communist people with a strong force in the creation of the communists in Mexico. The communist has never been a success in Mexico. The time in which the Communist Party has more members we can say that there were 20,000, something like that, in a population of 20 million people was nothing, no? But everybody was afraid about the communists. And the artists, the painters, the writers, the sculptors, the intellectuals in general, they decided to belong to the Communist Party because at that time the governor was run by generals, by military people, and the intellectuals never liked military people. So in Mexico, I don't know here, but in Mexico, they don't like it. And then these ladies, both ladies, they thought that maybe the Mexican artists could have a very good influence in the United States because they need to have a improvement of United States art. And they thought that the Mexicans could be a good influence as artists, but not as communists. And then they thought if they were invited to come here, maybe they forgot that they are communists. I don't think so, but they decide that, you know. And they invite them, and A.B. Rockefeller founded the Museum of Modern Art, and the second the painter that has ¿cómo se dice? Una exposición, the only man, one man, was first Matisse, Henri Matisse, and the second Diego Rivera. And then Mr. Payne, Mrs. Payne, present Diego with the Rockefeller father and Nelson Rockefeller. And Nelson Rockefeller, as a young man, was very interested in Mexico. And he went to Mexico, and he turned with a lot of Mexican art made by artisans, popular art. And that is the way in which the relation between Nelson Rockefeller and A.B. Rockefeller and John Rockefeller started with Diego Rivera. And when the building of the Rockefeller Center at New York was finished, was just in the point of be finished, they decided that Diego Rivera could paint there. But before of that, Diego Rivera paint here in San Francisco, paint in Detroit, and he paint in Detroit 2 large murals that they are superb murals. They are really magnificent murals. And he had a contract to paint 2 in Chicago. But lately the problem in New York, he doesn't paint anywhere more, and he has to return to Mexico. But so in the time that he was in New York, at the same time there were Miguel Covarrubias, that he was a caricaturista, he's an excellent artist. It were there Tamayo, Rufino Tamayo. It were in New York too, Jose Clemente Orozco, and all them also in intellectual was Octavio Barreda, that was he's a literate, he's a literate man, and all of them were very interested in the creation of a ballet with the music of Carlos Chavez. They create a ballet named Horsepower. The idea of this ballet is the same that they have since 1926, in the sense that the America, our continent, no American United States, no, our continent, should have a most conscious about what was happened. What was happened for the North was creating, has a great development on industry and machinery and in all that was the creation of the new word, the industrialization word. And the South from Mexico to the south of the continent, the people has the same character as always. There were sensual people. There were a lot of the songs. They dance. They live about with the fruit of the nature, and they live in a more simple way. And the idea of this group and with Mrs. Payne and Mrs. Rockefeller, they start to create the idea of what must be La Unión Americana, Pan-American Union. And this means that the two parts of the continent should be united in one common labor and common point of view about life, and to have a good understanding between the South and the North. And they made a lot of activities with that idea. They wrote books and they paint and everything. And they created this ballet. And the ballet was presented in Philadelphia only once, the night of March 31 of 1932. And it was a big social success. The people, A.B. Rockefeller, she was owner of railroads, and she had private cars, and with the cars, and with the private locomotora, they went to Philadelphia, and they spent the night there with a great dinner party and all those things, and the ballet was presented. It was the only time that the ballet was presented. And now, we are going to present it next year in Mexico. Because we thought that this idea about the union between the two continents, the two parts of the continent, will never die. I think there are many people like myself that we thought that must be changed, the relation between the North and the South. And the magnificent way to found these connections could be art. Like in a way, it is the most important for humanity, the most important way to be really a human people. So, in 1933, the Rockefellers asked Rivera to paint this mural. And the mural was painted, and you know which the history is. So, how long I've been here? Huh? So I have 50 minutes more? Okay. Yes, because I start to talk and then I lose my conception of time. I'm sorry. And in the first project of the mural, ¿dónde está el chico? Who is going to take care of him? Había un chico aquí. Well, I will start without the PowerPoint. The mural was projected for a larger wall. The owner of the building, and the Rockefellers, they decide for a larger project, you know, and I'm sorry. No, al principio. El hombre en el cruce de los caminos. This picture it was taken when Diego Rivera arrived to New York. He was 40 years old at that time. and he was just married with Frida. They married in 1928, and they traveled to United States in 1930. So they have 2 years. This is one of the first designs that he started to make, you know? Diego Rivera started to make. By the moment, television is starting, and in New York, the Rockefeller Center, the radio Rockefeller radio station, they have proven some television programs, and it was this great success of the time. So, starting, you see, this is one of the first designs for the mural. When the owner decided that it would be a larger one, and then you saw the television screens there. And the idea here is about, Diego Rivera likes very much children, you know. He always was thinking about children, and you realize how he thought that children could be the future of the world. If the workers of the world could pay attention and could do something for children. And yes, and here we see that the workers stay with children. They stay here with the rich people and trying to change something. But here, I'm sorry. Here, this is the first idea that Rivera had about the monkey, the Darwin theory, because there are a monkey in there, and then a child is there, and the parents are there, and everything is the theory of la teoría de la evolución de la especie, no? Evolution of the species, coming from a monkey, and then the child, and the couples, and the rich people who can't have a child, but anyhow, everybody descends for the monkey. And the center of this design, you see there, it's a television screen with starting what happened by the time, and the children are there playing, and the father and mother taking care of the children. I don't know why, by that time, my father was so interested in children. Almost all his life, there are many paintings in oil canvas that the picture of children. You know, he has something about especially, but the beauty of the Mexican child. They like it very much, and really, one of the most important portraits that he does was about children, you know. And here you see another television screen, and how the workers can stay there. There is the idea about Jupiter running the world, you know, but the word about the rich people. And here Jupiter has lost his head because he's not taking care of the workers. The workers must be different. They must believe on the justice of Jupiter justice. This idea was changed lately. The mural doesn't realize in this way. This is a third project, more or less the same one. Shorter. This is the front part of the first project. Here there are something. For instance, these ladies there, the athletic women, and the students there. It's something that was kept for the next. We can see it more. Yes. More. This is more specific. The project of the New World is over here. But it's always the idea that the rich must be done something for the poor. And the world must change, you know? And this is another example of the child are here fighting, playing. The child are there, all over, you know. This is very similar. I'm sorry. Can you put this scene? It's very similar to one scene that Rivera painted in the Ministry of Education in Mexico with a Mexican child. And here there are a North American family, you see, and North American child. But it's very similar. Yes. Yes, you change it. This is how the mural was before it was destroyed. You see, from the original project, the athletic ladies were there, and the television screens were changed, but those great glass lens. And the idea of the crossroad start here, that was definitely created, the cosmos, the galaxias, and el mundo del microscopio, con el mundo de los grandes aparatos para ver el universo. Aquí in this part of the mural, they put the machinery there in the front, and the man who is in the center, he's the one who take care of the word, you know, because he was a workman, and he take care of the knowledge what will be happen all over on the microscopic world and on the galactic world. Universal work. And then he decided to make the portrait of Lenin. And as I know, this decision was taken because the influence of the Communist Party of the United States. By the time Rockefeller had a great business with the Soviet Union. They have a great business because Rockefeller changed the oil for the machinery that they sell to the USF, de la Unión Soviética. They were very, very close friends, and they create a enterprise that was named Armstrong. And through this enterprise, Rockefeller and the Soviet Union made a lot of business, because officially, United States had no relation with URSS. Officially, there are not relations, but under the water, the Rockefeller had a great business with la URSS. Amy Rockefeller, she was very, very close to the Russian people, maybe to the communists, you know, and they were sympathetic with it. And Francis Paine, she was sympathetic with the Communist Party too. But the difficult comes when my father decided to paint Lenin, because somebody of the Communist Party obligated my father to do that. He doesn't thought in do it, but somebody comes there and said, you should paint the Lenin portrait. The Trotskyist group in New York were very, very strong. They have a great power on politics about the time. And they have one school, the new school for workers. And when the mural was destroyed, the amount that the Rockefeller paid to Rivera was invested in the painting of 10 murals for the workers' school, or for the School of Workers in New York. So the money from the Rockefellers went to the Trotskyists, and through Diego Rivera, but I wish I will have the time to make a profound research. How profound was the relation between Rockefeller and the Urs at that time? In reality, the friendship between Nelson Rockefeller and Diego Rivera continued until the day that Rivera died. I have the opportunity to meet Nelson Rockefeller at my father's house, and I have the opportunity to meet Trotsky in Mexico when he lived in my father's house too. I played marble with Trotsky. As you understand, I could be a real communist, but I don't want it. But it was very funny because in 1942, I remember that I lived with my father and Frida in the house of Coyoacán, and I remember when Nelson Rockefeller comes to have dinner there, to have a luncheon there, and he was very handsome. When I met Anna Rockefeller in New York a few years ago, I said, "Oh, Anna, when I met your father, I was in love because he was so handsome." And she said, "I was in love too of my father." So you have reason to fall in love with Nelson Rockefeller. And I am going to try to make some research about how the relation was. Because in Mexico, nobody knows about that, you know. Nobody knows about the double role that Diego Rivera was playing by that time, because he was a close friend of the Rockefellers, and in Mexico, lately when he back to Mexico after that he left United States, he becomes a friend with the Nazi people here in Mexico. And he hated Nazis, but he became a member of the campaign of one of the candidates to the presidency that he was a Nazi, a member of the Nazis, el grupo nazi-fascista. Because many people in Mexico, in the time of the war, they want that the Nazis win the war, you know. There was a strong activity of Nazi people by the time during the war. So my father had an opportunity to hear what they are doing, the Nazis group, and then he had a relation with Nelson Rockefeller. And a relation that, no obstante, it was not the matter that they take out the mural, because they continued with their friendship, you know. And they continued with their friendship by political reasons, because both of them were against the Nazis, and they had to vote against the Nazis. So in the mural, here you saw la hoz y el martillo, no? In this galaxia. This is a galaxy, but you can saw there the symbol of the Communist Party, la hoz y el martillo. And in Mexico, that is why Rivera was not accepted very well, because everybody talks about him, about the communist Diego Rivera. But sincerely, I think that my father was not a real communist. He was expelled from the Communist Party several times. Almost each year he was expelled, and some years passed and he come again. And finally, in the last years of his life, he was out from the party. He asked to come back to the party, and in the party they don't want it. You know, they said, no, Rivera has nothing to do with us. But finally, the embassy of the URSS offered to my father that he can go to Moscow because my father has a cancer, and they have the bomba de cobalto, this treatment with cobalto, and they asked my father, that she would help, he can go there and to the hospital, and they will pay attention, and they can solve my father's life. And finally, when my father died, in the cemetery, my father is enterrado, ¿cómo se dice? It's in the place in which the most famous people of Mexico are. It's an honor for our family, no? And the day in which my father was enterrado, was entierro, the people from the Communist Party, the young people, want to put the red flag over my father's coffin, and to take out the Mexican flag. So I said to my sister, if they do that, I am going to destroy the red flag. Please tell them they don't do that. And they don't do that. They don't did it. But Siqueiros, that all the times he was the enemy of my father, because Siqueiros, the painter, he was a Stalinist by heart and by actions, you know. He tried to kill Trotsky. And Siqueiros start to talk in the funeral, at the funeral. And then I went, I take the microphone, and I said, stop. You can talk about my father. You are a traitor. And well, it wasn't a scandal, but I feel so happy that I could do that, that I do that, you know. And the President of the Republic gave me the opportunity. He told me that I was a real daughter of Diego Rivera. So I start being the companion of my father, 2 years old, going to the Communist Party. And finally, I have the opportunity of change to keep our flag instead of the red flag at the cemetery. I'm sorry because I am very nervous, and I did not talk in English for 2 years, so it has been done a very, very a strong effort to me. But I am so pleased to stay here and to can explain something about the history of this mural, things that you cannot know because you are studying the techniques and all those things, but know the history on el fondo del mural, de la historia, en el fondo de la historia, ¿no? Algunas ideas, you have some ideas now that you can show all the human problems that there were behind the mural. The big human problems and political problems too. Thank you very much. First, they put the curtain over. Lo taparon, ¿no? First. And it was covered for 5 months. And finally, I heard that somebody from the Communist Party asked Nelson Rockefeller that he said that a mural with the face of Trotsky has not been there, must not be there. And by order of Stalin, through the Rockefeller, the mural was destroyed. Because the business that they have, you know. So the Rockefellers pay attention to Stalin. And the mural was destroyed. You know, all of you, you know that Trotsky was murdered by order of Stalin. So Stalin hated Trotsky, and he promised to himself that Trotsky should be murdered. And he all the time. I know a lot of history about how Stalin tried to kill Trotsky before the final murder of Trotsky. And the destruction of the mural was asked from the US government to the Rockefellers. Otherwise, maybe the mural will be not destroyed. But they destroy it with ¿cómo se llama? ¿Cómo se llama? Con harms, you know? They destroy it by one night. During the night, the workers start when the building was closed, and during the whole night, they take the mural, they destroy it. Yes. I beg your pardon? Yes, yes. Well, yes, when Trotsky arrived to Mexico, Frida and Diego lived in the house, the blue house, and they allow Trotsky and all the staff to live in the blue house. And we went to visit. My father take us, my sister and I. My father liked my sister and I very much, you know. He really was very close with children, and he was such a good parent, you know, father. And we went with my father all over to the concerts. In reality, he educated my sister and I better than my mother. And he take us to Trotsky house, the blue house where they are living about the time. And my sister and I were playing there, and then he comes. I remember perfectly well. He comes and he looked at us, you know. He said, "What are you doing?" He speaks Spanish by the time. He learned Spanish in 3 months, so he can speak Spanish. ¿Qué están haciendo, niñas? We are playing marble. Oh, I will play with you. And then he started to play with us. He was a very charming man, you know, very, very warm person. And I was admired because in few months, since the first time I saw him, and the second time, can we say 3 months at last, he could speak Spanish. He has a really great cerebro, no? Brain, a brilliant brain. And I read that when he was killed and they take out the brain to make some research or something, they discovered that the weight of Trotsky's brain was exceptional great, more than anybody else. They have such a big brain. So we don't know what will happen if he was not expelled from Soviet Union, and that he will be the great man in Russia. Maybe things could be not so bad like they were before. That is the history. Mhm. I think Trotsky was not so bad person. And in Mexico, there are a group of people that they feel that the theory, Trotsky's theory, is much better that even that Lenin theory, you know, that he was really the great man who developed the power of USF's army and everything. And he was I remember perfectly well, you know, he was very, very, very nice, very kind. I was, all the time I was thinking how a great man like him, I was 8 years old when all that was happened, no? So I have the opportunity to meet her and to talk with her, and it's an exceptional person. Because when you are a child, you can perfectly well distinguish which is the good and which is the bad people, no? So I can say it so. For me, it was a terrible damage for humanity that he was killed, because maybe things could be not so bad like they were lately with Stalin, you know? Okay. There are any other questions? Yes, please. ¿Qué? Mi relación con Frida? Well, when I lived with her, I lived there perfectly well. I wrote a book. The name of the book is Frida's Fiestas. And it's a recipe cooking book in which I wrote my grandmother recipes, because Frida's never cook, no. But she doesn't know. You know, there was something very funny. When my father went to Russia, he left gold money in a bank, in Montreal Bank in Mexico. By that time, the government take out the monetary power of the gold. So somebody from the bank comes to visit my mother and said to my mother, you should take that money because otherwise you will lose. My father was in Russia. So my mother took the money. They were separated already. And because my mother said to my father, if you go to Russia, I will be separated to you. I don't like to have a husband in Russia. I want a husband here. So she took the money, and with that money, my father had a friend architect, and this architect started a small building with 3 floors. And when my father back, and the building was ended, Frida and my father lived in the 1st floor. A friend of them, they lived in the 2nd, and my mother and his new husband lived in the 3rd one. So the whole family, we lived there. And my mother teach Frida how to cook. She never learned. And my mother cosía, sewing my father clothes. And my mother allowed Frida to, she made some dresses for Frida too. They have such a good relations, you know. But lately, they went to live in another house in Coyoacán. And in 1942, I went there to live with them. And she was an excellent person, you know, also a friend, you know, with me, friendly, and very, very nice. But the last years of his life, everything changed. She was so ill, and not ill because she was ill by mental problems. She developed a paranoia, and she becomes really very paranoid people. And I don't like it to go to visit her because it was terrible the way in which she was living. But the history has been changed, and everybody thought that Frida was all the time an ill person. She wasn't. Yes, she was. She had an accident. She was operated. She had problems. She lost children. But she was very gay. She loved life. She was very funny, you know, very intelligent. She was very bad language. Muy pelada. She talked with bad words all the time. But she was really intelligent, you know. She was a really intelligent woman. She talked about Freud a lot of time. She read Freud, and maybe she tried to change his mind reading Freud, but she could not. And she died in a very terrible conditions. But also the history said that he was all the time in wheelchair. No, he was very parrandera. I don't know if you know what does that mean. Who can translate parrandera? Huh? Well, she went to go to cabarets and everywhere, and hear mariachi music, and she had all the time some music at home. And my book is 12 fiestas of the year, because she celebrates every month one fiesta. So with music and with good food and Mexican food, and I like her until the time she becomes so ill. She had a lot of women surrounded her, and the women were the people who take them to take her the narcotics, la heroína y la morfina and everything. They're friends, you know. She developed a very sad situation. So I think it was better that she died, you know. Otherwise, life wasn't good for her at the last times. She had a psychological problem. Some psychoanalysts told me that many people likes to be operated, and she wants to be operated, and it was the way in which she can demand my father's attention. In 1 year, she spent 1 year in the hospital, in el Hospital Francés, and my father had to rent in a room there to stay with her, because she doesn't want to leave the bed, you know, because she was asking all the time, Diego, stay with me, stay with me, stay with me, and that created larger problems to my father, because the money was not enough to pay the hospital, and sometimes my father doesn't have money at all, because and he has to paint like a fool, huh? all on day, to have some money to pay the hospital and the illness of Frida. A doctor from San Francisco, Dr. Leo Esser, he was his doctor. He was a very brilliant man, and he was a very good doctor with her, and he tried to do his best. But the problems were mental problems more than everything. So that is the history behind the curtain. Oh, don't mention. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your attention, because you were a good public. You pay attention to me. It's not the matter of fact of my language. I'm sorry. Okay.
I'd like to thank Dr. Rivera for her marvelous talk today.
No, thank you.
It's really been a pleasure. I think that it's really opened a lot of different ways of reading this mural, the personal, political things that I never would have thought of. So this is just a real pleasure. I'm so pleased.